I'm here with Paige Olson, the creative play expert. And Paige, in the past, you've spoken a lot about that play is learning when we're talking about parenting our children. Uh, could you talk about why that is, why you feel that play is so important for our children?
Well, it's a good question. And I really believe play is how a child learns, especially a young child. They're learning about themselves. They're learning about how to communicate, verbal judo. They're learning about how to deal with things that are tough subjects, war, death, things that don't make any sense to them, fairies and all this make-believe. They're learning how to figure out how to engage in the world around them, their environments, the different environments they're in. And in playing it, it's really a safe way to engage in it because it doesn't have to be right and doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be make any sense at all. So play is this wonderful, rich place that a child can be in where they can learn things that you can't learn in a textbook. And you can't learn by filling out some sheet somewhere, and you can't learn in the academic world. It is an innate thing that is inside all of us.
Okay, well, but when we think about children, it's almost synonymous that we think children play. Children play. So are you implying that somehow our children are not playing enough in our modern society?
Well, I'm not implying it. Actually, there's a lot of research which actually shows that this isn't an implication, this is a fact. In 1981, 40% of the day was an unstructured play. That is not dictated by anybody. A parent, an organization, organized games, organized anything. It was unstructured, child-driven, child-led play. Mm-hmm. By the late 1990s, that was down to around 20% a day. Today, it's 10 hours a week, if you're lucky. So yeah, we have a crisis. We have a problem. Kids aren't playing, and it matters.
Okay, so there is you're saying that there has been a significant shift just in the last generation or so. Away from a significant portion of a child's life being unstructured creative play to something else, which may be electronics or maybe going to organized activities of some kind or other. But I guess that brings up the next question, which is, why is this unstructured play important?
Well, it's how we learn. I mean, it's how we learn about ourselves, who we are, what we like, what we don't like. It's how we take the information that's out there that we come in contact with and we engage in it to make sense of it. Whether we make fun of it, whether we figure out it's not something we really like, whether we find that we engage in it in different ways. It's a way where we make sense of ourselves. We make sense of how to communicate and how we communicate with others. We make sense of how we learn. We make sense of the world around us. I mean, when we don't have the opportunity, we become this individual. And when we're always in structured play or structured environments or academic environments, somebody else is telling us how to do something. Somebody else is telling us how to play. Somebody else is telling us who we are or how they see us. And we don't have the privilege and really the right to discover who we are as an individual, and then discover how do we fit into the bigger picture, because with that comes happiness, with that comes fulfillment, with that comes finding the job and landing the job that we should be doing anyway, which leads to fulfillment.
Okay, well, so what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that in our modern society, our children are missing an integral part of their development, an integral activity that helps them develop into figuring out who they are and what their interests are. And so where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, it's not just me. I like to share a little bit from this book called Play, written by Dr. Stuart Brown, who is the founder of the National Institute for Play, and he has extensively, over many decades, researched play both in humans and in animals and talked to many people. And he tells a story in here, which I'm going to just do a short synopsis of, about Jet Propulsion Lab. And Jet Propulsion Lab is the lab that has put Mars lunar landers on Mars and things out in space and been part of all these programs. And in the 1960s, they hired a lot of engineers, and those engineers did great things. I mean, they did great things. But then they started to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And as they retired in the late 1990s, or in the 90s, in the late 90s, and they hired new, young, cream of the crop engineers from the best engineering schools out there. No doubt that these men and women were brilliant engineers.
They got the best grades.
They got the best grades.
Yeah.
They did the best stuff.
Yeah.
And they found a problem. And so and I quote from his text, it says, unlike their elders, these young engineers couldn't spot the key flaw in one of the complex systems they were working on. Couldn't toss the problem around, break it down, pick it apart, tease out its critical elements, and rearrange them in innovative ways that led to a solution. They couldn't do it. Yet these were considered the brilliant minds. So what happened? So the JPL managers, Jet Propulsion Lab managers, went out and they started researching and looking, and I won't go into all of what they did. And what they discovered was this. They came back to their lab and they interviewed the young engineers and the older engineers, and this is what they found, and again from his book. They found that in their youth, the older problem-solving employees had taken apart clocks to see how they worked. They made soapbox derby racers or built hi-fi stereos, fixed appliances. The young engineering school graduates who had also done these things, who had played with their hands, were also adept at the kind of problem solving that management sought. But those who hadn't generally couldn't. So Jet Propulsion Lab actually retooled and redid their hiring so that if you didn't play with your hands as a child, the chances of getting hired became almost negligible, because no matter how well you did in school, because that element of play matters in your ability to do many jobs as an adult.
So aside from getting a job at JPL, basically what they're saying is that if a child does not have the opportunity to have this unstructured play running throughout their childhood,
Right.
a significant portion of their childhood, they do not develop this problem-solving capability in their adult life.
Absolutely. And one interesting thing about this is one of the places that they discovered this answer was actually in a race car shop where they worked on the race cars. So these weren't engineers, these were kids and young adults or whatever that worked on cars. And this is where, so engineer working on cars, it doesn't matter. There's something about play that allows us not only to learn about ourselves, but learn how to take things apart, look at them in a new way, allows us to bring astronauts back to space like Apollo 13. Here's the stuff they have, find me a way. That was back in the day where those people had played. So they were able to take this stuff and figure out, they knew what they needed to accomplish, and they were able to do that. And what this is saying here, Dr. Brown is saying, is because we're not playing, we're not able to take that stuff and make it do something that is necessary sometimes to save our fellow human beings.
So basically, the children are not developing the capacity to solve problems in a creative, non-linear sort of fashion.
Right, take
whether
it apart.
be engineering or
Right.
fashion design or anything like that.
Right.
That this is something that is creeping up on our society.
Right.
And we're just now starting to see the repercussions of this.
Right.
Well, so we're here with you because you say that you have your method of a solution to this problem.
I do. I do. And we have to remember that when our children are young, what we do with them and what they do, while we may not realize it, matters when they're in their 20s. when they're going for that job, when they need to try and save somebody's life. They need to be able to pull something apart and rework it and be willing to do it and be willing to take it down to its bones and look at it from a different angle.
So where do we go from here?